Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for making it. This is the first A Art, baby. We're A Art now. Brother Benny, how would you pronounce our new acronym? Would you say AI Art? I hesitate because of the AI situation, but how would you? How would you?
When I saw the lowercase I was wondering, is that
Yeah, me too. I think I like A art. Yeah, I think I could dig that. I could dig A art. And so we just have to learn to we're back on now. Make sure we're muting when we're not speaking, just to because I know sometimes that there can be an interruption. I may not always hear it, but the audience tends to hear it. Hey, Sister Ann, thank you. These are look, listen. I just want to before jumping in, just shout out with great love all you all that have been supportive of what was formerly AMART, Anti-Racism in Medicine Action Roundtable, is now Anti-Racism in Action Roundtable. And we were speaking earlier as to what motivated the evolution of the name, and that is to really highlight and showcase the broadness and expansiveness and intersectionality of nature of this topic of anti-racism. Even though it is located or situated in medicine and healthcare, it is so expansive and intersected with all the other sectors and aspects and sections and domains of society. And it's so important that we are always curating the narrative of interdependence and connection of these realities, right? The people I want, this is Dr. Para's, hope that everybody from the bus driver to the stay-at-home spouse or parent to the president, to the king and queen or monarch of some island, or wherever, whoever you are, from the newborn baby child to the elder that's 300 years old, to have ownership of this topic, to see themselves in anti-racism and why structural racism, white supremacist delusion, anti-blackness affects them, and to have a stake in dismantling these systems and understanding that what happens in the educational space impacts the health. What happens in the healthcare space impacts the health. What happens in public health impacts the health. What happens in housing impacts the health. What happens in foodways impacts the health. What happens in, like, name the most random thing, impacts the health through the lens of structural racism and white supremacist delusion, because that is the foundation of this society, of this country. And so it is so important that everybody sees that they have a role. And so we felt that putting it, maintaining in medicine defeats that role. And again, I was telling Brother Benny that folks will come on, right, and apologize for not being a doctor, not being a nurse or in healthcare. And that really started to break my heart, because I was like, it don't matter, this belongs to you, this impacts you, this is yours. And so it became clear that you can say that message, and I think we moved in a way that expressed and communicated that message. However, our name should also be in alignment. And so removing medicine so as not to be exclusionary, even though the spirit of it was to be focused, but if it serves, again, we know that the ways that things work is in the impact, not necessarily in the intent. So our intent was to explain the focus, that we wanted to really, show how the relationship, all these things relate to medicine and healthcare and vice versa. But the impact was that there was, I think, a spirit of exclusion. And this couldn't be further from what we're really about. So if we're truly about Ubuntu and community, which is one of our principles here at Now AR, then our name should be in alignment. So anti-racism in action, because we have a focus on action and having these conversations really be conversations, right, where our talk is really animates action and change in individual and institutional practices, and behaviors and norms, etc. But that it really should, again, like I said, be in alignment with a general intersectional lens that we want to bring. So we are A Art, and thank you, Brother Betty, for helping to confirm the pronunciation of that, because even I was like, so what would we call it? AI art, A art, and I love the A art. And I think Brother Benny, you help us get our merch together. Brother Benny, you're gonna hear more about him in a bit, but he is outstanding and has been really my right hand, literal angel, God sent, because I prayed for help and he arrived in terms of our technologies, helping us with video, website, and so many other things that are forthcoming. I'm so excited for this young man, this king, as he does great things you hear more about as we go forward. So, who am I? It's been a while, so let me allow me to reintroduce myself. My name is J.E. to the OLA. Somebody said, keep your day job, Doc, and you are right. I will. And I am your host, Dr. Ijeoma Nodim Opara. Ijeoma meaning safe journey, pronouns she, her, and all. And I am calling in from the original unceded lands of the Anishinaabe, known as Wa'awiyatanong, otherwise known as Detroit, the great 313, Motown, Motor City. This is the unceded land of the Three Fires people, the Ojibwe, Odawa, and Potawatomi. And I want to also recognize, acknowledge, and honor my Igbo, African, and diaspora ancestors, communities, and descendants, even at this moment. I am, you say, who are you, lady? Well, I am a physician, scholar, scientist, activist. I'm also a coach, consultant, speaker, mama, and wifey, and recently a cat mom. Y'all may have seen my pictures of my baby, Midnight Baby. I didn't know I was ever going to own a cat, but here we are. Never say never. And my mission in life, my personal, professional, and business mission in life is to dismantle white supremacist delusion, aka white violence, aka white terrorism, aka whiteness, by eliminating anti-Black racism from medicine, healthcare, public health, the sciences, and academia, while centering and celebrating Black brilliance, Black abundance, and Black joy locally and globally. So I want to thank you again for being here. Shout out again to Sister Mashley, Sister Ann, I see you, Sister Anna, and Sister Paula, for following us and supporting us this whole time. We took a break from last Christmas, and part of it was a burnout situation, otherwise known as moral injury. And we just had to take a rest. You already heard Sister Lana having some health challenges. Keep her in prayers, lift her up. And I also was experiencing some of that as well. So I had to take a break. We both did. Brother Benny also going through his own pieces as well. And so as Black people, our first act of revolution and resistance is to survive. Is to survive so we can thrive. And to do that is to take care of ourselves and take breaks, step back, readjust, re-strategize. We do that continually all the time. And so now we are back after taking these past few months, and we are reorganized in a way that will ensure that we are always prioritizing our health and wellness and well-being as our first act of revolution and resistance, as well as still getting the work done as part of the community. But we are excited for how art is going to really be a presence in your life and providing the tools and support and community and resources needed to begin to again meet that mission of ultimately dismantling systems of oppression and violence that impact us all. You know, I don't have to say negatively, as if that allows for a space where there might be positive impact, that impact us all in the ways that it does, which is always negative. And that whereby we can always again celebrate our brilliance as Black people and people of African descent. So thank you for being here. We are always a multi-interprofessional group. We already heard about what we do. I'll skip that part of the whole thing because we've already spoken a lot and we need to get into. But I do want to again really lift up our principle of Ubuntu, and we're here to build community and build power to influence individual and institutional practice, policy, and behavior through transformative conversations, as I tend to call it. So one of the changes that you should expect is that we will be meeting bi-weekly instead of weekly. So that's definitely one of the things. And this will allow us to work on other projects, AI project as well, and get those out to you in between time. So last year we talked about newsletters and other, programming and products. So we want to have space to do that, right? And so bi-weekly of our discussions will be in order. And right now, I mean, you can tell me later. Just go ahead and DM me your thoughts about the timing. We experimented with evening. Usually we used to meet at 1 p.m. Eastern time. Now it's 7 p.m. today, and I'm trying to, see which time of day works for us, and or maybe a weekday might work. And my schedule has sort of been adjusted. I have more research time these days, and so I think I can make a weekday happen if it needed to. So, and give us our weekend. So I really want to hear from you all as a community what makes most sense for you all. And I'm in a position now to be a little bit more adaptable. So please let me know what makes sense. Daytime, evening time, weekday, weekend will be really helpful. All right. Okay. And with that being said, all I'm going to say from a housekeeping standpoint is pay attention to the Jumbotron. I'll be putting some things in. You can watch us on YouTube as well. We're on Twitter Live and we're on LinkedIn. So, and next time we'll be on Facebook too, but I hadn't made that hookup link yet. That's the whole thing with StreamYard. So yeah, pay attention to that. And as always, share any gems or resources you have. And please invite folks. Let's get this room full. And if you have anything you want to publicize, we always like to share and celebrate the work of our community. And so definitely put that up, and we'll get that on the Jumbotron and publicize your work and celebrate you if you have an accomplishment or something. A lot of people have had some good stuff happen recently on Twitter, so you can definitely jump into that and we will share. Okay, and the hashtag get AR trending. So do that too, because we can. All right, good. So now that we've gotten the housekeeping, it's a long housekeeping. I know it'll get shorter over time. I promise it will. This is our first session. So much to update. That's why. But let's get into the reason why we're here on today. All right. And y'all see the topic, right? You see that at the top there. When the consequences of existing while Black is death. What is there to do, right? What does it mean for the consequences of existing while Black to be death, right? And so we want to unpack that collectively today. I see you, Sula. Thank you for being here. Shout out to you. And what really inspired this? It's unfortunate that this had to be the trigger. Oh, by the way, happy Earth Day, y'all. Climate justice, y'all. Earth Day is every day, and climate justice is every day as well. All right. What really inspired this, in addition to it being a wonderful day to come back as AR, being Earth Day, but is the Ralph Yarl case. And I'm sure we all are cognizant of and familiar with Brother Ralph Yarl and what happened, but it's always important in collective settings to level set. And so what happened is that in Kansas City, Missouri, I hear that you can say Missouri or Missouri, but in Kansas City, Missouri, a young boy, 16-year-old baby, was shot for ringing the doorbell because he was lost, right? He was looking for his siblings. Brother Ralph, he was seeking to pick up his siblings, rang on the doorbell that he thought was the right house. It wasn't. And an 84-year-old man, white man by name of Andrew Lester, opened up and took a .32 caliber revolver and fired it into his head. As this young boy laid on the ground, y'all, Mr. Lester fired again. I don't know if y'all knew that part. As he laid on the ground, Mr. Lester fired again, striking him in his arm. Now, this little king, somehow managed to run away after being shot in the fucking head and arm to find help. He knocked on 3 doors in that neighborhood before someone helped him. after he collapsed on the ground. What is the consequence to existing while Black? The title of this talk today, conversation today, was inspired by Kansas City Mayor Quentin Lucas, who, and I quote, said that 16-year-old Raphael was shot by an 84-year-old white man because he was existing while Black. Yes. So, Brother Benny, I want to invite you in to have, to sort of lend your voice to these conversations. We're going to be unpacking some questions and etc. But I just want to rest it there. Just that background. And to also sit with Mr. Lester's comments as part of his probable cause statement as to when asked why he fired at a 16-year-old baby. And he said he saw a Black male approximately 6 feet tall pulling on the exterior storm door handle. He saw a threatening, right, figure. All of a sudden is a Black male 6 feet tall with sharp fangs for teeth and wings like a dragon, breathing fire. And that's why he shot this boy. What is the consequence to existing while Black? What is the fatal consequence to existing while Black, Brother Benny? And before you get into it, why don't you share, let the people know about your greatness and genius, all the powerful, amazing things you do, who you are, and then go ahead and get into it.
Thank you so much. And I'm really excited for our first.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, I'm a so should I start over?
Yes, please.
Okay. All right. Well, hey everybody. Happy to be here on our first edition of ART. My name is Benaias Esayeas. I am the executive director of Black Mental Health Village. We've changed our name now. And we're a community mental health and health justice organization fighting for Black liberation and for collective healing. And collective healing is definitely, something that we need after seeing what we saw, what we heard, what we read about this incident. Um, I, I, like a lot of Black people, I think a lot of us saw ourselves or someone we knew in Ralph. Um, I've talked to several mothers who've lost their children to gun violence, and they were telling me they were reliving everything last week. So, the community in large, collective trauma is how we can explain what's going on right now. We're being made to watch ourselves, watch our sons, watch our daughters, watch people who look like us die again and again and again, and we're helpless. Feels like there's nothing we could do. Literally bleeding out of our heads, going door to door, and there's no one who's gonna, look on us with pity or anything. I'm just appalled by this whole story. I was really just astonished, but not surprised by this classification of this 6 feet, black man, right? Because I'm like 5'4", right, short guy, and the same thing has been said about me, right? And this is what they know. Like they know if they classify us as this hostile, big, scary black man, right? That it's justified for police or homeowners to just shoot and fire without any question. And to me, it's just white fear is a black death sentence. That's really what I constantly see. And I just don't know how much more our community can take, because we're just existing. We're just picking up our brothers and sisters. We're just going to the park. We're just doing normal people thing. We're not even you know it's just difficult. It's just difficult. And it's difficult to be a black man and to witness that. And I'm just hopeful, and I'm just so ecstatic that he was able to return to his family. I think, like, yeah, most of the people, when they saw that I talked to, when they saw that he returned back to his family, they said, okay, now I'm finally a little bit at peace, right? And it takes the safety of our people for us to feel safe, and that's that collectivism that we have. And so what I just want to remind us is, when something like this happens to one of us, it's happening to all of us. It's damaging all of us. It's impacting the telomeres of every individual who identifies with that black body. It's yeah, we're just intimately connected, and I felt it. I felt it, and I felt for him. I felt for his family, and yeah, we're still reeling from it. I guess we're still reeling from this experience.
Whoosah, yes, brother. I mean, you unpack so much. I want to start first of all with, amen, that brother Ralph survived. I can't actually. That is what I can't really wrap my mind around that. This baby was shot in the head and in the arm, survived to escape, survived to ask for help, uh, then collapsed, was finally found, um, and then is alive. I mean, I'm just like, what? Whoa. I said this baby has a purpose. Like he's supposed to be here. There is something he is to do in this world. And his story, first of all, is definitely going to make impact. It's because things are going to change fundamentally in Kansas City, Missouri, and in the country as a result of his story. And then also there are things in the future that we are yet to witness, that this boy, this baby is going to fulfill. So I'm excited, and I'm excited to be part of that story. The miracle is I believe still unfolding on the back of this powerful young man, because my God, like, just there, right there is just, it's woof. I'm just that. But brother Benny, you also highlighted, like, again, so much in what you said, the vicarious trauma, the collective trauma. And what we know from trauma work, and we have some folks here who are experts in trauma, is that the brain cannot, it's an academic exercise to determine what is primary trauma and secondary trauma. And for just, again, it's always important that we level set. When we talk about primary trauma, primary trauma is a traumatic experience, a series of experiences that have happened to you directly, and so you develop a response to that, right? That is trauma, and a trauma response. And secondary trauma is that it happened to somebody else. It didn't happen directly to you. However, you are responding in a way as if it did happen to you, right? Because of some connection you have with the actual subject, the actual target of the event or series of events. And as Black peoples, that is so true. I think as a human family, but specifically as Black peoples, because we know that that person was targeted because of a shared feature that we have, right? And so, so when it happens to any one of us, we all know how we reacted when Brother George Floyd was murdered, when Brother Tyree Nichols was murdered, and the list goes on, like this whole list, all the lists, right? It's not just these two, but right, all of them, Eric Garner and Tamir Rice, another baby, right, 12-year-old, and the list goes on. So we know what happened. We know how we reacted to these things. I remember my trauma response of just numbness and shutting down and just sort of dissociation, and we will explore. And Dr. Jessica Isom does a great job of talking about racial trauma. Brother Jonathan does also a great job. These are folks on social media in the mental health space that talk about racial trauma, and so these are great people to follow to learn more. And we will have that conversation in the future. But yes, these are the things, and trauma is not benign, right? These trauma responses to you said the shortening of our telomeres, guys, family is the part of our genes, we would say our DNA, that is correlated to our longevity, our lifespan. The shorter your telomere, the shorter your lifespan, baby. And the longer your telomere, the longer you live. And so we know that what is called weathering, which is the impact of trauma and stress on our bodies, shorten our lifespan. And the truth of the matter is that Black people in this country, in this continent, North America, are dying before their time, period. In Detroit, it's up to 15 years earlier than 5 to 15 years earlier than white counterparts. Black people are dying. And this is the reason. It is the chronic toxic stress of intergenerational racial trauma as a result of white supremacist delusion, anti-Blackness, and structural racism. Period. Right? So this is it is happening to us all. It doesn't have to happen directly to me. We are all affected, and our body doesn't know the difference that, oh, Ijoma, it's not, you weren't the one shot in the head and the arm, running away, seeking help, and being rejected. When you start to pile on that trauma, not only being shot, the shock of, oh my God, I'm in the wrong house, and then you get shot, and then you're trying to survive, and then you ask for help and you're rejected. Imagine all of that to a boy, to a child. It's like my brain doesn't know that. It's like it happened to me. It's like it happened to Brother Benny and to many of us. So the danger of that is then the body kicks into gear in response. You have a sympathetic response. Your whole flight and fight response system in your body, your nervous system, is activated. And we are not meant to be under chronic stress. Chronically, you need that system to run away from a lion if you ever meet one. But you can't spend your life running away from lion every day, whether it's the lion chasing you or the lion that chases someone that belongs to your community, and so you run. This is why we live shorter and shorter and die before our time, not just from actual death, direct death causes, but the cumulative chronic toxic intergenerational stress, racial trauma as a result of systemic, structural, interpersonal, white supremacist delusion, anti-Blackness, and structural racism. And this is how we should be framing these conversations. Right? Not that the risk of having hypertension is being Black. That's the Black race is a risk factor in medicine, healthcare, and the sciences, right? That Black race is a risk factor for diabetes. Black people at high risk of cardiovascular disease. Bitch, we're at high risk as a result of the chronic, toxic, intergenerational traumatic stress because of white supremacist delusion and structural racism and anti-Blackness. That is the sentence. And when we are teaching and researching and we're speaking and we're presenting and we're writing otherwise, in any way, form, or fashion that locates the reason for early demise, mortality, morbidity, dysfunctionality, and disability in the Black community. And this also, of course, applies to Brown and Indigenous communities. We're focusing on Blackness because anti-Blackness is specific in this story, and in the fabric of society, and undergirds all other forms of oppression in this country. And so when we locate the deficiencies in Black bodies, we are participating in scientific racism, racial essentialism, structural racism, and white supremacist lies. We are, intentionally or unintentionally, but we are participating when that's the narrative we put forth, as opposed to the sentence that I just said, that full sentence. This is why this disparity is true as a result to Black folks. This is why Black folks are having worse outcomes in this way. We got to contextualize. So you got teachers, you got colleagues, you got students, you got researchers, you got publishers, you got peer reviewers, editors, every member of the ecosystem of academia, every member of the ecosystem of healthcare, medicine, nursing, pharmacy, social work, OT, PT, dentistry, vet, look, the whole shebang, right? If they are not contextualizing these disparities, please correct them. That's one thing we can all do. We need to name these things in order to dismantle them. We can't dismantle what we can't even name, right? Because this languaging is what animates the adultification of Black children, to the point, like you said, Brother Benny, that I saw a 6 foot tall Black male with fangs, breathing fire, Dracarius, right? This is the scientific, quote unquote, the pseudoscientific justification for the criminalization of Black bodies that undergird police violence against Black bodies, is the pathologization of Blackness. When we talk about, well, Black folks are at risk of, as if the body by itself inherently is deficient to render us at risk. No, this is in response to the chronic, toxic stress of racial trauma that's intergenerational as a result of white supremacist delusion, structural racism, and anti-Blackness, the period. So these things are all interrelated. That's I'm making, again, what we do at the roundtable is we connect the dots. We connect the dots. These are all interrelated. They're all connected. And it can be brought back to what we do in healthcare and medicine, because we define these things for the rest of society. So I really want to lift that up, and the trauma. And later on, I'll be sharing resources on racial trauma healing kits, toolkits, and other things, and we'll reference that as we go forward. Of course, Brother Benny is of the Black Mental Health Association, and so we'll be also sharing some resources of how we practice that, racial trauma mitigation practice and work, as part of our healing, because that must always, I think, our healing and liberation must always be centered in this work. And so, Brother Benny, I want to build on, and very soon, family, will be opening up for your feedback and your thoughts and comments and whatever offering that you have at the table. So you are welcome to start requesting to speak. And so, Brother Benny, I want to invite you. There's a piece that I'm very interested in. I'm always interested in the way, we talk about structural racism. So when you talk about structures, we're talking about laws and policies, norms, rules, regulations, standards, right? Those invisible things that govern our life and determine our realities that you don't see unless somebody tells you. And that's oftentimes why they don't tell you, and why they're, doing things in the school system to ensure that folks don't know that your reality is created as a result of these laws and norms, standards, etc. We see that with what's all is going on. And so there's a law that is that's also sort of playing a role here, right? And that's the Stand Your Ground law. I don't know if you're familiar with it, right? And so Missouri has a Stand Your Ground law that allows citizens to respond to threats of force without fear of criminal prosecution. And I believe that's one of the laws that will be referenced and leaned upon in this case, as far as Mr. Lester and his defense. And so I just want to talk, have you just sort of share thoughts around the ways in which laws and policies, these rules, standards, and regulations, these invisible strings of society help to exacerbate, worsen, spell out, emphasize, undergird, maintain anti-Blackness in our society, to result in things like this, in what happened with Brother Ralph Yarl, what happened with what was the young boy that was shot by I believe it was in Florida, because Florida also has, yes, exactly. And so, right, so what are the roles there, because that is related to action for us, and the ways in which part of our healing and liberation work is in actioning and activism and civic engagement. And these are can be targets for intervention in terms of our activism. Is how do these rules, laws, etc., play a role in facilitating, frankly, white supremacy delusion to our detriment?
That is a great question. I think we're good now. Yeah, that's a really great question. So whenever we talk about structural violence and structural racism, people have a hard time really understanding what that is. And so I always talk, whenever trying to get people to frame things about the system, I think about it as slavery was one of the most profitable systems to ever exist on the planet Earth, right? Especially in the United States. And so we have to understand that there's so much money that was made by the system of slavery. And when slavery ended, that money didn't just disappear. That money went into institutions, right? Institutions that still exist today. You know, J.P. Morgan, Wells Fargo, some of these, institutions, they went into the people who create the policies, the procedures, the laws, right? So even though it looks like we live in a society where, oh, it's illegal for you to discriminate against somebody, it's illegal for you to be racist, whereas a lot of people like to argue, the way that we've created the structures of society, the fabric of society, right? The way we use redlining and housing discrimination to prevent Black people from living in certain communities. The way that, we use these redlining tactics to prevent economic mobilization and economic development of communities that have, predominantly Black and brown people, right? We know what causes harm. We know what communities need to thrive. How do we know? As soon as we gentrify them, everything that was needed is there now, right? So when people say, I don't understand structural racism, it doesn't make sense to me, because it's clear as day. All the things that a community needs that is lacking when it's predominantly Black, all the things that it gains when Starbucks is finally there and Whole Foods is finally opened up, that is what structural racism is. That is, the underfunding of our communities and the divestment, right? The disenfranchisement. Not, we have marginalized communities. We don't have poor communities. We have communities that were made poor. We have communities that were, intentionally divested from. And so that, is what exists. And when we talk about the, rules like, oh, stand your ground, it really talks to, who determines what is force, right? Who determines what's a threat, right? Because these laws were really made to frame us, to always frame us as a threat, right? I put an article down around about child protective services and the harms of child protective services, right? And we say, oh, this system was created to protect children, right? But we know It was created to specifically target Black parents, Black children, right? So a lot of the laws, a lot of the policies that we create, they may seem like they're colorblind, but they have a specific agenda, and their agenda is white supremacy. Their agenda is, you know, harming our families, harming our communities. It's keeping us depraved. And so, I'm not surprised that they use these kinds of laws to justify the force, to justify the harm that is, done to us, because ultimately these laws were created, to benefit white people and to further cement white supremacy through the system. So it's sad, but this is the same tactics that we've seen historically, and this really points to the fact that we really have to be well read, because these are the same tactics that are being used, that have been used historically, being used again and again, and we have to really go back and start reading, and get ourselves into the literature of Black radicals, because this is a playbook that's already been played.
Yes, brother. Yes, 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 yes. Oh my God. Drop all the mics, all the mics. Again, we are open to speakers. You want to come up and talk your talk, please go ahead and request to speak now. You have a question, you have a comment, you have a thought, you have a call to action, what have you. That if you just want to hold space, this is your time to do that. Please, please, please. We'll be rounding up soon. And thank you, Sister Ann, as always. And Sister Ann, I do hope you come up, because I want you to also tell folks about your 1619 book club project, that 1619 project book club that you've been doing. I apologize. I made one of the book club. I have not been able to make the others due to like crazy deadlines that have been popping up all over the place. But I hope you know that I support you and everything you do. You're a wonderful sister. So I hope that you come up and talk about that. So again, we'd like to celebrate the work that our community does. Thank you also, Sister Ann, for really populating the chat of for the room, and just really doing a great job of it. And so I appreciate you. I've also been putting some materials in there. I put the hill.com article on Ralph Yarl and the comments from Kansas City Mayor there, so you can read that. And also a couple of resources on racial trauma and racial trauma healing. And we'll reference that as we round up as well. But Brother Benny, as always, coming with the power there. And I recently gave a talk, and I'm gonna put something together for Twitter in terms of this presentation. And y'all remember that for a while I was bothering y'all with, what should I do? I was invited to speak in Florida. How do I speak in Florida about health equity if I'm talking about racism? Because DeSantis said this, that, and the third. And you all really helped with your directions. Most of you really just being like, yeah, speak, girl, but take security with you. And I'm down with that, okay? And two of my residents offered, to be security for me. I said, that's okay, babe. Like, we'll do Zoom and test the waters virtually, and then go from there. But you know what, it went well, honey. And it's connected to what you're talking about, Brother Benny, because I outlined at least 4 of the bills that have been passed in Florida under their governor and the laws, right? And then tied them to the Black codes, the slave codes from the 1500s, y'all. From the 1500s in this country, before this country was a country. All right. They have always been laws to govern African bodies. Y'all, what we're seeing today, like, this is one of the most powerful things you've said, Brother Benny, which is this reminder. We have to keep reminding ourselves there is nothing new under the sun. This is not new. All these rules and regulations, it's still backlash against the Civil War. It's still the South losing in that war. That's what we're dealing with in 2023. People mad that you took away their economic source of wealth, right? In terms of slavery, which we know wasn't complete. I mean, there was all kinds of compromises. So it wasn't as if the North really did end it, etc., in service of the Union. But there were all kinds of compromises because, again, Black bodies have always not been valued in this country, and that has been codified in the law. And many of the reasons you say, why don't we have universal health care? Slavery. Why don't we have good transportation? Slavery. Anything as to what you go back. Why don't we have this good stuff here? Because there are a group of people who are like, no, everybody can't have good stuff in this country. There are people who are darker than us and therefore less than us and don't deserve health care, don't deserve good quality, affordable food, don't deserve good quality education. No, because if I don't have someone who is less than me, then what am I? That is the underlying psychology that underpins why we can get nothing good in this country, really. Why this country just does not achieve the potential of true greatness that it can, because it hasn't confronted the reality of this recalcitrant, stubborn whiteness that holds on to power, even at its own detriment and at the cost of Black bodies. And with Black bodies, they bring in everybody else, brown bodies, indigenous bodies, everybody. But it starts with, anti-Blackness. So when we look at the law, you're right, Brother Benny, has always been a weapon, a tool to secure power within whiteness. Always. We look at what happened post Reconstruction. Same thing. Black folks got into the Senate. Black folks started being doctors. Black folks started voting things into power. Started getting policies and laws in that benefited everybody. And then you had voter suppression, and you got KKK, and then there was the whole white lash has always been a constant to Black progress, which benefits us all. And we see that we don't see that played out any clearer than in the law. And so when you talk about stand your ground law, right, it is how do I protect my property and myself as a property owner and against threats, and threats in this country has always been codified in Black bodies. And so yes, it's all connected. It's all connected. And so we say this because when we talk about, part of the healing work that we do, part of like, what do we do and how do we move forward? We are identifying locations for intervention. Part of a comprehensive approach to addressing this issue is to ensure that we're civically engaged, that we are causing our representatives to either write laws or we're identifying laws that need to be struck down, whichever way it goes, that is in service of maintaining white supremacist delusion, that is ultimately, especially in the impact anti-Black, because again, you don't have to say race to have the impact that, racially disparate impact, but you can study the impact and effect of a law and realize who is disproportionately hurt or harmed and who is disproportionately benefiting from that law, to determine what that real function, the true function and purpose of that law is. And so we can, I always say one of those rules, not just holding people in position, voting for certain people to be in position, but then holding them accountable and making sure they work for us. And then you yourself also running. I think we sometimes forget to encourage each other that you yourself also running. And there are packs to help with that. There are groups to help with that. So I want to pause here again, invite folks to come on. Please just come on, talk your talk. This is a space for you, and we will keep talking until we will say 8:15, because we started a little bit late, waiting on a couple of folks. And so we'll go to 8:15. And so I want to encourage folks to please, come on and speak. Brother Benny, you are in the mental health space. Tell us more about BMHA. You said you changed your name. What was it before?
It's BMHA to now BMHV, so Village.
Ooh,
It's
okay. I love. Okay. So, why don't you tell us more about BMHV and what are some tools, resources, yeah, action steps that as a community we can do in terms of our own processing and healing, dealing with the collective trauma that this experiences usually affect us with, or the effect it produces on us.
I think the most important thing that we need to all do is first find a community or a group that you feel comfortable with, that you feel safe around, and connect with them. We cannot do the work of healing from collective trauma alone, right? So we have to be in community with others, and we need people who understand us, who will be there for us, people who get our perspective, people who won't make us feel like, oh no, you're just overreacting. Oh no, this is just in your head. Those people, we don't need to call them today, right? We need people who are actually um, gonna show up at our corners, and we need to really have those people talk about the different experiences that we've had. We need to share our experiences, be vulnerable, and I know being vulnerable is not easy for everyone, especially depending on the kind of past traumas and triggers you may have, and the issues you may have around trusting people um, in the past relationships. But in order for us to heal, we have to be vulnerable. And so I want to encourage everybody to find a group where you can be vulnerable, talk to them, share your experience, um, and don't just, and this is something that I struggle with. So try not to just intellectualize your feelings and emotions. Try to actually feel them. Um, and so, if you have to cry, feel free to cry. If you got to shake it off, shaking helps. If you got to, go on a run, whatever it may be, do what you need to do. Do what your body's telling you to do. But definitely feel the emotions, feel everything that you're going through, and allow yourself to, process. Allow yourself to just make sense of, everything that we're experiencing, because this is a lot. We were not meant to experience this level of trauma and stress, especially now that it's at our fingertips, and we can just pull out and figure out, oh, something happened here, shooting here, um, this trauma there. So we really do have to, step back, get off of the social media if you have to, get off of your phone, and take time for yourself, spend time with family, spend time with friends. But this is something that we can't do alone. So I definitely want to encourage people to find a group, find your safety net, and share with them as much as you can. And let me see, is there anybody who would like to speak?
Yeah, we have someone to. Can you mute, brother?
Okay.
I apologize. Bear with us, y'all. We just started back, so we're still getting ourselves together. But I love community. I know y'all, y'all holding us softly. So thank you for your gentleness with us. But yeah, I just wanna, yeah, we do have folks again. I see. Oh, shout out to. Oh, I see these beautiful, wonderful siblings. Sister Camille in the house. Shout out to you, Sister Birgit. Thank you so much for coming. Shout out to you, Brother Byron. We see you there too. Just shout out to everyone here. Sister Mika, yes, in the house. Thank you all for coming. Appreciate you. And Brother Benny, I want to just comment on something you said, and then we're gonna have Seven Fig Nig come in and talk their talk. And so again, y'all come in and come up. And if you have something to say, something to share, this is your space to do that. Go ahead and put in the request. We're going to 8:15 today. We don't want to keep you all the rest of the Saturday, part of the self-care that Brother Benny is talking about. But just to reflect on, Brother Benny, what you said, the feeling your feelings is powerful. Because I think oftentimes many of us, depending on your upbringing, cultural upbringing, religious upbringing, your generation, and then many of us here in healthcare, academia, etc., there is a conditioning about distancing yourself from emotion, right? Disconnecting ourselves from our humanity. And I want to argue that that is a soul death. That is a soul death before a physical death. You know, we are human beings before we're human doings. And I like to say, so I tell my students, say, human beings are human feelings. You want to really connect with people, you want to impact people and people's behavior and things of that nature, then you need to connect to their heart. And you cannot connect to another person's heart if you're not connected to yours, period. You have to be connected to yours, baby. So what are you feeling? When I facilitate conversations, you know, I when I share a scenario, I'm like, well, what are you feeling in your body? You know, people want to intellectualize, like you said, appropriately so. Well, what I think is that, you know, I'm like, yeah, but what are you feeling? And then people get to me, I'm uncomfortable. That I was uncomfortable. Good. That is where we start, because that's where the truth is. We can intellectualize ourselves into delusion and illusion. Right? We can't make change if we start from a place of falsehood. We have to start from truth. And truth is what your body is doing, right? We know that trauma lives in the body. Life experiences live in the body. How are you reacting in this conversation right now as you sit in this room? What's happening to your body? What's happening to your body? That's the truth. And you know, sometimes we don't have words. We were not, let me tell you, I was not taught how to connect to my feelings. And I did not know words for my feelings until I was a whole ass full grown adult. And I would say because of that, I will only call myself adult because I was over 18, but not because I was emotionally mature, because I couldn't even give words to my feelings. I had to learn that in 12 steps. And so that's where I learned to actually give words to feelings. And that is part of our liberation work, when we can say the truth with what's going on with us, so that we can connect to larger truth in society. I argue that part of when you meet somebody that has trouble connecting dots and owning truth, you know, historical truth and structural systemic truths and all these things we talk about, my argument to one of the reasons why they can't make that connection is because they're not even connected to themselves. You're not even connected to yourself. Now, I focus on Black folks, but for 1 minute, I'm just going to divert a bit and just say one of the reasons why some white folks, many white folks, struggle with these things is because part of whiteness is to disconnect you from yourself, your own history, your own story, your own spirit. And when you're disconnected from who you are and your community, you cannot connect to other people. But whiteness ensures to divorce you from that in order to maintain power. And that's where we see the things that we see, right? So what you said is so powerful. And as Black folks, I think, again, like we said, part of our work of resistance and revolution, first step is to be here, is to survive in order to thrive, right? And to do that is to lean into the fullness of our humanity, so that we can be healthy, right? We can be healthy when we're connected to our feelings and we can process them in a healthy way. That is part of our overall health and part of maintaining those telomeres. And so that we can be healthy and be there for our families, our loved ones, our relationships, our community, and beyond. So we got to connect to who we are, our emotions, our spirit, our feelings, and the rest follows. So I just want to really highlight that and thank you for that gift. I want to also direct the audience to on Twitter, and I'll put it on YouTube in a second, to the thread there for the room, where some resources I've been loading up some resources there for racial trauma, as racial trauma survival toolkit. Brother Benny, if you could also add to that the Black Mental Health Village and other resources that folks can take advantage of, that would be amazing. And so with that, I want to invite, I don't want to ever presume anyone's gender, so I'm just going to say this amazing sibling, Seven Fignig. If I said your name right, you put up a laughing emoji earlier, so I don't know if I destroyed the name some kind of way. Forgive me, but why don't you come and introduce yourself and talk your talk?
No, you said my name very correctly. It's but you can definitely call me Rachel.
Okay, Rachel.
First, I just wanted to thank you guys so much for allowing me into this space, and also just holding space for us, because I think that it's really important that we have these discussions, and we have kind of a what do you call it, like a calm down period, or a place where we can reflect and really dive into the collective grief, and just understanding with people that not only feel the pain that we feel, but look like us while feeling it, right? And one of the things I will say is that I am local to KC. I was a part of some of the demonstrations that they did over in KC, and I will say that even that sometimes can be a bit much. Like you really do have to assess more or less your compass and what your capacity is as far as your part in the revolution, because you get into the debates with other people where they're like, oh, we can't protest because that doesn't work, or we can't vote because that doesn't work, or we can't, and really it's a collection of all of those things at once.
Yes.
And we have to figure out what part of that we belong into. One thing that I will say that I didn't think about until I actually met some of the folks from around there was there was an organization, news media outlet there called KC Defender. And KC Defender is a Black-led news outlet. It is not your typical kind of more professional, more whitewashed news outlet. Like, they really go in. When I was reading some of their articles, I was like, oh, they just said that plain and simple. And I think I never really thought about how much media affected my trauma until I started reading articles from KC Defender, and I was like, that's exactly how I would want something like this to be explained. It's so often that we look at the media, and not only do we see, from police cameras, police videos, and things like that, the trauma that goes on in our lives, but the way that the media portrays us, the way that they villainize us, and obviously, they have this thing where they want the perfect victim. And fortunately with Ralph, they finally got it. Most news medias out here in KC, they did not have anything mean to say about Ralph. There was no demolishing of his character. There was no anything like that. So I was really grateful for that. But what I will say I saw in white media was a lot of white fragility or sympathy towards something that was so heinously done. And not saying that, you can't feel some type of sympathy for him to go to jail. Because again, I operate in a space where, I don't believe in the carceral system to begin with. But there's also something to be said at the way that media portrays us in the space. So while we say, oh, take a break from like being on your phone, definitely take a break from that TV screen too. Definitely take a break from looking at the horrors that we see. You don't have to watch every video of police brutality. You don't have to go to every march. You don't have to You know what I mean? There are different ways that we can find ourselves in this space. And I really started considering being in the media space with Casey Defender, simply because, one, they were already looking for people to help out and things like that. But also, two, I really think that if we get media in general to start seeing us for who we are, seeing our feelings, seeing our things like that, through that collective Black lens from Black people, from Black news, it'll change the narrative a lot. But that's all I have to say.
Wow. Go ahead, Brother Benny. Yeah. Let me mute so you can speak. Go ahead.
I just wanted to say, yeah, that's incredibly powerful, and I could not agree more with you, Rachel. The media framing is part of the systems that we talk about in structural racism, right? Because media is also a system. It's an industry, right? And this industry, as you described, exists to villainize us, to make us look like, the bad, threatening people that they want us to be, so that we can justify our incarceration, so that we can justify our brutality, right? And so you hit it on, right on the money. And what really hit me is it's so sad that while he was fighting for his life, that we're worried about them potentially villainizing him and his name, right? Because that should be the last thing on our mind. The last thing we should be worried about is, oh, how are they going to frame him? How are they going to portray, this Black youth, right? And that is the system that we're up against. And we have to understand that each system is a system that reinforces another system, right? The media reinforces the housing, reinforces the healthcare, right? Because when Black women die 3 to 4 times more likely, or I should say, when they're killing Black women 3 to 4 times more likely than they're killing white women, right? The way we phrase these kinds of things, the violence that's enacted on us is always passive, right? But then when they talk about, oh, shoplifting, oh, stealing, they always want to, oh, Black on Black violence. Oh, then they want to talk about violence, right? And they want to make it active violence. They want to show that, oh, this violence has a name attached to it. This is the person who's enacting it. But when it's structural violence, right, they want to act like, oh, the market forces are causing Black people to be pushed out of their homes. No, that's greed. That's greed that's pushing Black people out of their homes, right? And so I completely agree with what you're saying, because the media allows us to frame this language that, violence against Black people is passive, whereas violence enacted by Black people, is real violence that we should meet with, police and brutality and all this other force. So we definitely do need more Black media that humanize us. We definitely need to take more ownership of our own stories, because if we don't humanize ourselves and if we don't humanize each other, we can't expect that this media will. So I appreciate you for that. Thank you.
Oh yeah, I mean, Sister Rachel just dropped the mic. First of all, thank you, and thank you, Brother Benny. That was outstanding. You just said all the things. And Sister Rachel, thank you for really holding it down in Kansas City. We appreciate you. I have a feeling, because you're a fellow Black woman, that you probably did feel the tiredness and the all those feelings, and you still went out anyway, because that's what we do. You still went out anyway. And but what you said is so true. Please, yes, again, this has been said by all the peoples, right? It is white people's job to fix racism. I'm telling you. Like, we just need to establish that, right? We're out here surviving, doing double work, because we're surviving violence and oppression. And also many of us, because again, for very obvious reasons I don't have to explain, also on the front lines are trying to end the violence and oppression that's killing us and others. But it ultimately is on the feet, at the feet of those who created these systems and structures of oppression and violence, and could maintain them and continue to benefit from them to end them. But like we know, they won't, because power doesn't seed itself, so it has to be taken. So here we are. And so in order to do that, though, like we said before, we have to be here. So like Sister Rachel said, please pay attention. We got to pay attention to our body. We got to know when to say when. I'm learning this every day. I'm better at it today than I was, but I'm not there yet. I wish I was better, and I will be, because I will keep practicing, because practice makes progress. And so I hope that we all can continue to practice identifying and really being in connection with body. That's why mindfulness and all these other practices are really helpful. So we know what's going on, so that we can intervene, we can stop, we can slow down, we can step apart, we can do the things that we need to do. Right. And so, like Sister Rachel said, no, we should never feel pressure. We have to be out there on the street. We have to be carrying the plow. We have to do that. Now, I would tell you, for me, for Dr. Opara, activism is part of my healing and liberation work. But again, everything has its time, has its season, and has its appropriate portion, shall we say. And so, if things are out of balance, then yes, we get into trouble. And so over time, I've learned to monitor that. So it's part of it. But honey, if we're not feeling it today, if the spirit is not right, no, stay your butt at home, Dr. Opara, right? Or go garden, go walk, go run, go dance. We talked about movement, like the dancing, the music, the singing, go play with the babies, with the cat, right? Binge Netflix, whatever the deal, right? Like, go get that joy, because it truly is act of revolutionary resistance. And don't feel guilty that you're not on that street, because baby, if you were Black and you are still alive and breathing, you are a miracle. You survived attempted genocide multiple times. You're from that lineage, okay? And so you being here is itself an act of resistance. You being on the street is bonus. So again, that piece. And the second thing I wanted to pull out, because Sister Rachel, you just said all the things, and Brother Benny definitely emphasized, before we go to my wonderful, beautiful sister, Sister Ann, is we get to write our own stories too. If y'all listen, everybody is a writer. Now we write differently, and maybe some of us it comes easier than others. But we can all write. And if you can write with your hand, with your fingers, baby, you can dictate into a voice memo and give it to a college student, high school student to type it up for you. Okay. And you can write for your local newspapers, your local newsletters, online column, whatever it is. We get to write our narrative and own our narrative. We get to support our people who have these platforms. So thank you for sharing with us, Casey Defender. I put it in the we used to call it the Jumbotron, but anyway, I put it on the thingy there, our thread, the room thread in the Casey Defender. There are a number of Black media outlets, that where we tell the stories through our lens, and we don't filter, and we say the truth and speak truth to power. So we've identified those locally and nationally and internationally, and we support them and we amplify them. I want to really challenge this room that you identify some of these resources and start tweeting them out with hashtag ART throughout this week, so that we can really amplify, Black media outlets who are as old as the day is long. As long as Black folks have been here, we've had ways to communicate and amplify what the hell is going on in the community. And so through our voice, in our voice and through our lens. So, the ones like Casey Defender, in your local area, find them out, tweet them out, amplify them, tag them. Let's go ahead and share, them nationally or internationally. That's one thing we can do collectively. And then support them if they, whatever form of support, and then participate. Can we, and hey, we're in 2023 podcasts. What are the Black podcasts out there that are truth telling, right? And go on them, as you all are gifted, professional, amazing people, right? Go on there as guests. So write for them. Like I said, if you don't have time or energy to write, speak into your voice memo. I just recently discovered voice memo. I'm like, oh, I might actually get to finish my book after all. Because the sitting and the typing was not working for mama. So yeah, speak into the voice memo. And there are other apps I've heard that can translate for you, transcribe, sorry, for you right away. If not, get your kid, your cousin, your nephew, your niece, or that kid across the street that bothers everybody, needs something to do, get them to transcribe your voice memos for you. And you can submit work to your local, even forget local, even your institution, even with the newsletter that you write in your institution. You never know, can spark change wider. So every little ripple that we can do adds to this big tidal wave of change. So I want to encourage us with this. But like I said, as Black folks, if you do nothing but just show up in the morning, all right, and drink some coffee, baby, you have resisted, because you are here, and our existence, as far as I'm concerned, is revolutionary. With that, Sister Ann, you get the honor of bringing us home. I'm going to ask again, if anybody has anything to share, go. Now is the time. This is last call for alcohol before the bar closes. But by the time Sister Ann is done and y'all have not put in your request, we are closing the room, baby. Now, Black people, I love us to death, but we have this habit of waiting till, half second before the hour to get our epiphanies that we want to drop. Listen, if that happened here, I'm telling you, you're going to have to wait till, 2 weeks, or tweet it out and we will do a thing with it when we come back in 2 weeks. So, I love us. But with that, Sister Ann, the mic is yours.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to share out to this village meeting tonight. So thank you again for inviting me up on the platform to just share. You had mentioned you wanted me to talk a little bit about my 1619 study group.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, the operative word is study. So it's not an opportunity for folks to come in and rehearse what they already know. You actually have to read and study it and come away with some historical nuggets. And then I always push the listeners who participate, I always push them to try to find how what they're reading in our past history traces out to today, so that they make connections between what's going on today and their roots in our
I apologize. Please keep going.
That's okay. So, the operative word is study, and as a result, we lose quite a bit of people. I start out with a big group, and then I lose quite a bit of people because, it's a study.
Mm-hmm.
But nonetheless, we've had 2 cohorts so far. So I had a first cohort, I was all gung-ho, and we had 18, we studied all 18 chapters, and that practically did me, and I thought I was going to It really did, because it's unrelenting, and you don't even realize how unrelenting it is until you really go through. And then the second cohort, I just did 6 chapters, and then that way I felt like I could still maintain and be of service. So I'm not sure if I'll do a third cohort. If I do, certainly let you know. But that's what we did there, and we've had study guides and so forth. We concentrated on concentrated on rebellions this time around. First time around, I was just more concentrating on dates and trying to organize dates along time spectrum. But this time I looked at and had the participants pay more attention to the rebellions and just spend time understanding.
I love that.
Mindset. Oh, I learned so much just by getting in the mind of and the heart of those who dared to rebel. And they knew that, a very horrific death awaited them, and yet freedom was worth that much. Yeah, it was very powerful, extremely powerful.
And so I try to get into the various mindsets of the rebel, the fugitive, the receiving families, and the and maroonage, and just kind of looking at what kind of mind, what kind of heart, what has to be there in the spirit to drive toward that. And so that's kind of how we did this cohort, and I'm not sure what's going to pop up for the third cohort, but as I say, I'll let you know. Just want to point out two things. You had talked about practices and being mindful and doing our breath work. And while I think those are important coping strategies, well, we have to be careful that we don't help normalize the abuse that's traumatizing us.
Right.
So
Right.
we're doing the mindfulness and we're doing all that. We're adjusting. It's a form of adjustment to the abuse that's oncoming. And so you can't just stop there. I would assert, or I would encourage you not to just stop there. You have to have some kind of pushback, because that's what keeps you sane. Quite honestly, just knowing that you're not part of the abuse of yourself. You're not participating in your own abuse. And so part of that is to push back and have some kind of a rebel spirit and push against that which is causing us harm and trauma. So I want to just kind of put that out there. You don't want to normalize and just adjust. I breathe. Every time I experience this, I'm going to breathe. No, you need to be working on what's causing. And it's not our work. Actually, it is the work of whiteness. But it's our work to find our own space and carve out our own space.
That's right. That's right.
It's a retreat. And a lot of us don't like that word, retreat. But there's nothing wrong with retreating and re-strategizing and then coming back to do a better fight. So just keep these concepts in mind. I just want to put that out there as I listen. And then a couple last things. Weathering. I just picked up this book, Weathering by Arlene
Geronimus. Yep.
Yeah. And so I might do a study on that book. I haven't started it yet, but I have it. And it looks at, just as you mentioned, it talks about how racial stress ages. Folks who have to experience it over a period of time. And we're good at that. We've been doing it for over 400 years. But I do think that this is a little different, and I'm not sure why, but I do think that what we're going through as a community today is a little different. And I know we have more resources, so I know we can do it. Our ancestors are showing us the way, but I do acknowledge that it's just a little bit different. And we just need to push away and push against this whole piece of the inescapability of violence. It's everywhere. It's ongoing. It's designed so that you can never catch your breath. You never have a sense of a respite. And it's designed that way. So, and that's what helps feed this sense of trauma, this vicarious trauma. Well, it goes back to the inescapability of it. So we have to design some kind of space or some kind of opportunities for us and each other to have an escape away from it. And I don't know what that looks like, but I do know that has to be there for health to thrive.
No, I'm with you, Sister Anne. Thank you. Those were powerful, gems dropped. So much. I'll just pick a few as we round up the space tonight. And what an amazing space. One piece here, this don't normalize your abuse. I hear that loud and clear. And I think that's why for me and many of us, we connect. And I think these two things should live together, which is the self-care practices and mindfulness and all those pieces, so as to mitigate the impact of the weathering on us. That's part of that self-care piece, whatever it is, the breathing, the mindfulness, the exercise, the dancing, all those things. We need to do that, for ourselves. But I think it also is connected to action. right? The action work of carving out that space for us to thrive. Yeah, that action work of carving out that community space for us to be ourselves in the fullness of who we are, connecting all the pieces of us spiritually, physically, emotionally, intellectually, and otherwise. And so I think these two things live with each other. The second thing you said about, again, connecting to your book work and the study. Dr. Soon to be Dr. Benny, Brother Benny, reminded us we got to read, we got to know. And I love what you said about really taking time to deep dive into the rebels and the rebellious history, our ancestors who rebelled. And that is so important. We need to, again, tie our current work, the work of the present, into this like long lineage of victoriousness and triumph, and resistance. It matters when we ground ourselves historically to know we're not alone. And this is not the first time. And our grandmothers and grandfathers and grand people, resisted, and they rebelled, and they didn't just take things lying down. And in many places they won, and they did excellent. And it's so important to know that, because it's that confidence and strength that really energizes and animates us to do the work that we do. So I love that piece. It really highlights, as Brother Benny said, you got to read, you got to ground your work in Black liberatory, theories and studies and concepts and frameworks and abolitionist movements, etc. And that is so key. So I really want to lift that up as well. And finally, you talked about that space to be, that space, and what can that look like, Sister Anne? I argue that you are creating that space in your study group. I hope that art is part of that space, and each of us can curate. And I think the invitation for us is to use the blessing of our imagination. We talk about freedom dreaming in on the round table often, and freedom dream what that space can be. And we all have the power to say, well, just for today, where I am, this is that space today, whatever that may. I will imagine it to look like this, and this is what we're going to make happen and create. And so tying in our gifts of imagination and creativity to produce what freedom and liberation and safety looks like for us today, wherever we are, I think is part of the invitation. And it's part of the ways that we can exercise, liberation, and the ways we can exercise anti-violence and anti-oppression to get that respite, that retreat from the ongoing and never exhaustive violence. So I want to sort of, really encourage us with that. We have the power of creativity and imagination to determine that. For me today, in this moment, art, this roundtable is my space to get away from the rest of it and share, space with this community. And so I hope that can be the same for you, and that we can create that for each other. Brother Benny, I want to invite you to share your last words, and then we're going to end with one of the tools that I shared in the thread for this space, that is called The Four Bodies by the amazing Jacqueline Ogochukwu. And this is basically her holistic toolkit for coping with racial trauma. And so I will review it briefly, and we'll end listening to a meditation for grounding, do some breathing, and close out. And again, like Sister Anne said, this does not replace the actioning that we need to be about the business of doing to create those spaces for us and our community. Again, this roundtable building community and building power to influence, to inform, to affect individual and institutional action, to create, liberated, just, and equitable spaces for Black people to thrive. And so we can all do that in one way or the other. And this allows us to be able to do that, right? This is part of the health and healing work, a comprehensive health and healing work. Hopefully that involves us also getting enough sleep, getting enough hydration, healthy, nutritious cultural foods, exercise and activity. I would say movement. I actually prefer movement and activity to exercise, because exercise, sometimes comes with a specific, like, oh, I gotta, run and go to the gym. No. I'm talking about moving your body. And so whatever that looks like for you. And so movement and activity, getting enough hydration and nutrition and sleep, doing the human being things that we are doing those things. And part of that is also your mindfulness, breathing, and all that. It's part of just holistic taking care of the preciousness that is your body and your mind and your spirit. Worship, right? Your spiritual practices. So all those things, we got to do it, because that's is ours to do. But it enables us to then participate in the action work of community building to create the spaces that we imagine that work for us. So Brother Benny, please come on in with your last thoughts and your summarizing thoughts there, and any calls to action for us, for the community. And then we'll end with our meditation, breathing, and the words from Sister Ogochukwu.
I'm going to just keep it very short. Sister Anna shared with us, don't normalize the abuse that's harming us. I have a pinned tweet that says, you can't self-care your way out of an oppressive system. It's just not possible. And so we have to rethink the way that we even look at the mental health system, right? Because a lot of mental health care is a carceral-based system to help us cope with the realities of living in a colonized society, right? And so the goal of mental health, the goal of what we're doing is not just coping, but it's actually overcoming these systems, right? And so I definitely I felt that I heard that call to action myself, that we're not just out here just collective care, self-care, but through our healing we're building power, right? And that's what I want to remind people. We are building power through healing, because we can't achieve liberation using the same tactics of grind culture, right? Our activism can't look the same as the systems that oppress us. And so we definitely do have to take care of ourselves, but at the same time, there's some work to do, and we have to build power. And what better way of building power than through love and collective care. And so thank you all for being here today. This is a place where I get my collective care and my restoration for the week. So I'm glad that this is back on, and I'm just really happy to be here.
That's my brother Benny, y'all. Just such a beautiful way to end. Thank you. That was just beautiful. What better way to achieve this than through love and collective care? Oh, that's right there. That's it. That's it right there. And so let me share with you the 4 bodies, a holistic toolkit for coping with racial trauma, that was designed by Sister Jacqueline Ogochukwu. And just share a summary of it. Then we'll listen to a meditation. It's only 5 minutes long. And then we will close out with some breathing, and for those who want to participate, no pressure. And so Sister Jacqueline reminds us that there are 4 bodies: the mental body, emotional body, physical body, and spiritual body. Okay. And what she says is that we'll take one at a time. The mental body, easing our minds after a racially traumatic incident. Okay. And she says the mental body is where we house our thoughts, beliefs, opinions, and sense of value after experiencing racial trauma. It's possible to be anxious, stressed, and frantic. So how do we create space for healing in the mental body? 3 things we can do. 1, and many of this has already been said. 1, we can unplug, take some time away from viral videos and media. Sister Rachel talked about this, but Brother Benny talked about this. Vicarious trauma can create more anxiety and stress. 2, pause. Take time off from work if you can, or school if you can. This will help reduce the mental load you have to deal with during the day. Number 3, talk. And Brother Benny talked about this. Release the thoughts in your mind to a licensed therapist or a trusted member of your support system, your family, your friend network, who knows how to make space for your racial trauma. That's key, right? That they are trained, and this is not someone that will gaslight you or tell you, well, not really, or start saying all kinds of other bullshit. Like, this is someone that knows what's up. And so you can do these 3 things to take care of your mental body. Let's talk about the emotional body, right? Releasing emotions after a racial traumatic incident. And so this is where we house our lived experiences and the feelings attached to them. And so after experiencing racial trauma, again, vicariously, primarily, it's possible to feel sadness, anger, resentment, depression. So to create space for healing in the emotional body, what can we do? 3 things. We can feel. Brother Benny talked about this. Allow yourself to express sadness, anger, or fear so that they do not remain trapped in your body. Remember, the body keeps the score, right? And trauma lives in our body. Trapped bodies lead to bodily inflammation. They sure do. Trapped emotions, lead to bodily inflammation and get us to be physically sick. So in medicine, we call this psychosomatic, like, symptoms where there's nothing we cannot, in all the MRIs and CT scans, chest x-rays, we'll do all the tests, all the blood work, everything is normal, but you are sick. You feel sick, you have pain, you have rashes, you have, your belly is out of whack, you can't eat nothing, you have diarrhea. The body is out of whack, but we can't find anything physically wrong with you. And when we start to do some mind body work, some spirit body work, we notice that something isn't right in that realm. So absolutely, the feeling, like Brother Benny said, is so key. And again, remember, it shows up in our telomeres. It's that part of that weathering that shortens ultimately our lifespan. So feel, right? Secondly, gather, surround yourself. And Brother Benny talked about this, your tribe, with people who give you a safe space to express your emotions. They deserve a soft landing place. And thirdly, write. And Sister Rachel talked, introduced us, the element of media, narrative, and the power of narrative. And narrative is so powerful. It is constantly weaponized to justify and codify anti-Blackness and white supremacist delusion all the time, and the violence that Sister Anne referred. So we get to, like I always say, write our own narrative, and it can begin just by the journaling, right? And like I said, if you're not up to the writing, if you're not up to the typing, fine, use the voice memo, but express yourself, journaling your experience, telling your story, and accept the emotions that emerge as you do so. That is so key. Don't judge it. Don't label it. It is what it is. Let's talk about the physical body, transforming tension after a racially traumatic incident. Now, this is the tangible part of our bodies that we see and feel. And so racial trauma can lead to chronic fatigue. We talked about body inflammation and other physical ailments. So to create space for healing in the physical body, what can we do? We can do 3 things. 1, rest. Y'all, sleep is medicine. Okay, take a moment to sleep, take naps. And we can learn this from the nap ministry, y'all. If you're not following the nap ministry, I believe her name is Sister is it Tracy Hershey? And forgive me if I'm wrong, please correct me. But the nap ministry is the ministry of the people, and she's doing great work. And she recently published her book. So, but she's on social media. Nap ministry, it's all about that. Rest is revolution, baby. And so take a moment to sleep, take naps. Rest is reparational practice for our people whose bodies have been exploited. Sister Jacqueline says, take a moment to sleep. Get those at minimum 7 hours, if not 8, if not 9. I don't play with my sleep. And I learned this from my father, who my mother says never played with his sleep, even when they were super young, before we came along. And so I've learned that from this man who doesn't look a day over 50, and he's 70. So take a moment to sleep and take naps. Okay. Secondly, move. We talked about movement, right? Walk, dance, stretch, run, shake your body. I'm a huge fan of just moving the body. And if you get some music, especially if it's Afro beats, baby, you are in it. And so allow your body to release that pent-up energy within you as you walk, you dance, you stretch, you run, you shake your body. I'll never forget the day I walked into the ER to see a patient. I think I was in training. I was either a medical student or a resident, but I was in training. And I see this gorgeous, beautiful Black woman elder, and this lady is supposed to be in the bed so I could, like, take care of her. Mama was up stretching. She was touching her toes. She would put her arms up to the sky and go side to side. She was moving that body. And I always remember her. I remember just smiling at her as she showed me her different moves and how healthy and strong she was. So we can learn from our elders to move and stretch. If that's all we can do, baby, you've done it. Thirdly, self-massage. Release tension stored in the muscles and tissues in your body. And you may get emotional, but that's okay. The energy is being released. So you can self-massage, or you can have someone massage you. And finally, the spiritual body, returning to ourselves after a racially traumatic incident. And so the spiritual body houses our essence. After experiencing racial trauma, it's common to feel hopeless, demoralized. And Brother Benny referenced this earlier when he started, his offering, to say, hey, this is how we get to feel. Well, that's in our spiritual body. And so to create space for the healing in the spiritual body, we can do, you guessed it, 3 things. One is that meditation. And I'll also say prayer, right? Take a moment of reflection to remind you how divine you are. And if you are someone that believes in a higher power, how you're connected to a loving, powerful, higher power that loves you and takes care of you and is there for you and got your back. It's easy to forget how special you are when you experience racism, because inherent to racism is dehumanization and devalue. And so that moment, to take a moment to meditate, to pray, to get one with spirit, allows us to remember again how divine and royal we are. Secondly, reclaim, read. And so Sister Ann, talks about the books. Read, listen to, watch, or go to events that help you regain a sense of pride in who you are and to whom you belong. All those wonderful stories on Netflix, on Prime Video, and all the streaming platforms, the books, the podcasts, the art, the roundtable, where you get to remember who you are in community with others, reclaim your identity and the pride of it. And thirdly, organize. And so Sister Ann reminded us again, it's not just about the meditation and the healing piece to sort of adjust to abuse. No, we should never be okay with it, but we want to take care of ourselves. So we take care of ourselves so we can participate in the actions required to build the space for us to thrive. And so that's through organizing, engage with and support local anti-racist organizations that can help you feel hopeful and empowered. Isn't that wonderful? And so that's on the thread for the room. And that is again by Sister Jacqueline Ogochukwu, The 4 Bodies, a holistic toolkit for coping with racial trauma. There are other racial trauma toolkits that are also shared there. And so I want to encourage you to read and reflect on that. It's really short. That article is really short and it's amazing. You can take it everywhere with you. And as you reflect, I want to encourage you between now and next time we meet in 2 weeks that please share on Twitter, #AART, tag us all so that we can participate in collective healing and massaging. We can take one body at the time. Maybe we sit with the spiritual body this week or next couple of days, and then we unpack what we're doing around the emotional body and then the mental body and physical body, and however you want to do it. But let's do that together. Why don't we? Right? All right. And so, taking a hint from Sister Jacqueline and the spiritual body, the meditation piece of how we make space, why don't we listen to this meditation for grounding? And even though it says the therapy for Black girls, I think this is applicable to all of us, whether or not we are girls. and that we can sort of ground in this. This is only 5 minutes and 13 seconds, and then we will close with some breathing and some music, and go forth joy and with a commitment to who we are and the village to whom we belong. And so let's do this. And I just want to lift up, who is this? This is Debbie Brown. All right. We want to always shout out our creators. And so Debbie Brown is going to lead us in this meditation for grounding. Amen. Ashe. Ashe to everyone. Thank you for participating with us. I hope that was ooh, that did me good. I didn't even realize how much I needed that. Thank you, Sister Devi. Whoo, I feel I felt that, Brother Benny. Did you feel that one?
I feel it. I feel refreshed. Like we just started a new day, right?
Oh my God, yes. And you know, when she said about that image of gratitude, so I don't know if you saw, I posted on Twitter. I was at this morning at our Michigan State Medical Society where we impact policy and a lot of different things. And so guess who I saw in the evening though at the reception? I like, look at this. I see this black man, you know, older black man, handsome, stately. I say, who is that? Is that my daddy? And that was my dad. And it was so wonderful to see my dad. I didn't know he was coming to the meeting at the meeting, and he was chuckling, and it was just, my dad is so cute, y'all. He's the cutest 70-year-old you ever came across. And I got him to do a dance video. You'll see that tomorrow or something like that. But and that just made me smile today. And so when she said, you know, think of something you're grateful for, and I could think of quite a few things today, but that definitely is top most of mine. I'm so grateful to still have my parents with me. And for those who don't, like you know, have your parents with you physically, I pray that, you know, you smile when you think of them as they are with you and with us in spirit. So why don't we close up? You know, you already know it's 9 o'clock, and that is the African version of 8:15. So when I said 8:15, I really meant 9 p.m. and you needed to Afro translate what I said. So with that being said, in fact, the ancestors are like, daughter, you're early. The ancestors were like, oh, we were thinking 10:30. You're early. You're doing a great job, daughter. But anyway, listen, I just love y'all. Thank you for taking the time to be with us. We will be back in 2 weeks. What date will that be? In 2 weeks. In the meantime, tell me, and thank you, Sister Ann. Sister Ann already let me know in the DMs. You know, is weekend okay? Is 7 p.m. okay? As opposed to 1 p.m., which is what we were holding it before, Eastern time. And it's weekday preferable. So I'd like to know weekend versus weekday, and afternoon, early afternoon. It ain't gonna be morning, I'll tell you that much. But early afternoon versus evening time. And we'll go from there. But if you prefer which time or day, please let me know. I would love that. And we will plan for that. But for now, unless something changes, just plan for next in 2 Saturdays at 7 p.m. Eastern time. And if that time changes because I get feedback, I will let you all know. So that's, but be ready for that. Let me give you a real date. You know, let me act like I have some sense. So
May 6th.
thank you, May 6th. See, that's why I have Brother Benny. So May 6th, 7 p.m. Eastern time. That's what you should plan for until otherwise notified. And you will get the things, you know, as we get closer. So thank you again for being here. Remember to go forth. Make sure you love yourselves and love each other, build community and build power. I love you. We love you. And we can't wait to be in community with you on May 6th. Take care now.